I see a really big potential in the drone industry, understanding what the ROS framework can do for them, because can help having a more divide and conquer architecture, more modular architecture. So thinking about this is the control, this is the path planning, this is the computer vision model, and ROS help you doing this faster.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Behind the Tech. On this one, we talk with Davide Faconti from PickNik Robotics, the famous maintainer for the tool PlotJuggler. He talks about the rise of ROS throughout his 20-year career as a roboticist.
How long have you been working in the industry?
20 years.
20
Yeah,
years now.
I consider that my beginning, even if I was the last year of university, so just because maybe saying that I have been 20 years in robotics is nicer than 19. So I'm adding one fake year just because it sounds
At that point,
it's
it
a
doesn't
rhyme
matter.
number. But yeah, probably, I mean, yeah. If I should say something more official, would be 2004. But yeah, I've been in many different kind of companies. Sometimes some collaboration with the universities, so a little bit of more academic ones. Another time it was with a university, but very much applied to create a prototype for a multinational company. So even if it was academic, it was not academic in the sense of researchy, right?
Yeah. And that had a clear business goal.
Very pragmatic and focused on building a product, a new kind of product. In general, I like more industry.
And where do you like to focus more in the industry? Like perception or?
Whatever. That's when I started, I was doing humanoid robots, super fancy, and I at that time I told myself, oh, that's what I want to do in my life. I want to be, the mastermind that build the best human robot in the world. And then somebody else did. And nowadays I don't really care. I enjoy in general solving problems, and the more useful it is, real problems. So not theoretical one. So I could comfortably work in a warehouse robotics or even drones or autonomous cars. I would be equally happy. Manipulation. So I just enjoyed the field in a more general sense, and I'm a generalist.
And I feel like a lot of the skills that you need translate well to different fields of robotics. So in your 20 years of experience, what sort of like skill sets do you think that roboticists should have?
Well, first of all, there is you need of course a good background in at least one of the domain specific topics. There could be computer vision, mechanics, control, planning. So usually that's where you start, right? Then what I always say is, if you're an artist, you need to be good at manipulating your tools, right? So the colors and so on. So the way that our tools is programming most of the time. So being a good software engineer is something that is the number one skill you need to develop to be able to effectively translate what is in your mind into something that a computer can understand. So being a good software developer is important, but it's always a tool that you use to build something that is more domain specific.
Do you think that it's best if you specialize in robotics into a specific field, or more like a generalist approach where you know a little bit of everything?
Yeah, this is a very personal decision. So I suggest both. What I mean is that if you're really passionate about a specific topic like computer vision, just you can spend your entire life become great at that, and that's fine. And there is and people need experts in that field or another one. Then there are people like me that because of my own personality or circumstances They are more curious. So I've been jumping from one topic to the other, and this bring my career in a different direction. So the point is about what you enjoy. What do you enjoy most?
Yeah.
Being a real master in a topic, or being like me, somebody that understand enough of different topics to see how everything fits together into a system. They're both valid strategies. It's just up to you.
Yeah. Would you agree with the statement that robotics in general is more like an integration problem? Like you have to keep integrating parts of systems and glue them together.
Absolutely, absolutely. But what I mean is that what I meant is that this is something you do as a team. So of course, at the level of the team, you need to have this heterogeneous skill set, and probably the tech lead need to be more of a generalist. But I would like to shift the focus more on teams or robotic systems instead of individuals that need to
Yeah.
do it all.
Yeah. I think you, in the 20 years of experience, you've faced that a lot, aren't you?
Yeah.
And do you think like the robotics industry has changed things to open source?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I've seen a big shift. I mean, the advantage of being in robotics for so long is that I really saw the difference before and after ROS.
Yeah.
Right. So I always joke with my community where there are a lot of evangelists and people that strongly love ROS. I'm probably one of them. I don't know. I try to be unbiased. I always have the joke. I was doing robotics in dark age before ROS, and of course we were still doing a very good robotics at that time. But the level of efficiency at which we go from idea to first, let's say, proof of concept is way faster. And this is thanks to the fact that a lot of people think about ROS as a framework or middleware. I think about it as a community and an ecosystem. That is really a shift. So at the end of the day, ROS as a middleware, as software artifacts, you have inter-process communication. So with IDL, TCP communication, stuff like that. I'm talking now more about what ROS one was. So that's nice. You have libraries. You have a lot of tools. You have a build system that in C++ was always historically something missing. Nowadays, many years later, now we have something like Conan or other stuff like that, but we didn't have that. So ROS invented that when nothing existed. So we have that is great. But what I really like is that we built a community where people have a great incentive into using other people open source software and making their own open. So that is the number one change that happened in our industry. Since ROS was injected, more than 1 decade ago.
So, do you think like you got ROS and how it's? I want to try to measure like how impactful it was to go from like the dark ages, like you said, into this ROS oriented world.
Yeah.
So how you like talk more in depth into like why would a company, and at that time it was still like in 20 years ago maybe if you want, like why a company would switch from their proprietary IP to move to something like ROS?
I can't tell you where, but I've been in companies that have been doing this. They had a very successful proprietary software, and they realized that the level at which they could improve the software was maybe they were already better. They have a more solid system, but they saw that companies, a new startup using ROS, were getting from pro concept to product much faster than they did. So they say the rate at which you can build your solution is faster. So they said, okay, we have a system that works, that is great. We already have a fleet of robots, that we are selling, but we realize that our competition is basically filling the gap super fast thanks to ROS. So we need also to move to ROS because otherwise we will become obsolete in few years' time. That is how impactful it is. And the reason for that is not because ROS has anything special. It's because of the tooling, debugging tools that you use for debugging, or the fact that you can find, a robotic system is always a lot of pieces that you put together, right? So you always compose this system, and it may well help you to have them loosely coupled instead of a monolithic software. So it is very easy to say, okay, I'm taking this sensor driver and this algorithm, and this is mine. And also I can see design patterns about how they're put together. So looking at how the others are doing that. So I'm not starting from a white canvas where I need to figure it out myself. So you can reuse things that are open source, or you can rebuild your own, or that's fine. But for sure, you save a lot of time.
Yeah, the engineering resources get applied into the actual solving the actual problem.
Exactly. And I've seen, these internal tools being built, and then they see the ROS tools and say, oh my God, we spent, 1 year building this internal tool, and this other one is so much better. And this actually happened to one of my software. So recently this summer, so I'm proudly also part of the open source community with a software I built that is called PlotJuggler. That is conceptually something very simple, like I would say a commodity. That is nothing else than a software that display data sets as time series. Right? Conceptually very simple. You can do it with whatever MATLAB, Matplot. That's a commodity, right? It just happened that I do it better. So in a more intuitive user interface and so on. And there's a company I cannot mention that I worked with this summer. They say, oh yeah, we have this internal tool to basically, we have an industrial machine and we want to monitor for debugging what's going on inside it, and we have our own tool, but we would like to try yours. And in 3 days working together, I plugged that, and everybody was super happy in the team. Said, "This is so much better what we did, and now we don't need to maintain it anymore." So that is how impactful tools are, and this is a great thing that ROS has.
Oh, and so now you have this new collection of patterns that made this open source project helpful, and then you saw companies actually start contributing back to increase that shared knowledge.
Not that much. There are few exceptions. There's still a lot of free lunch here, take but don't give back
A lot of
mentality. Yeah, there's still a lot of that. And I can't blame them. I have been in company like this. I was in a company where I was forbidden to even mention to the original author that I found a bug. Forget about sending any pull request to fix it. Others that were more open or very open. So there's a little bit of everything. A lot of people. So what is ironic is that a lot of this company thinks, oh, we have this key technology that nobody else has, so this is a strategic advantage we have. 2 months later, somebody is going to do it because when multiple people have the same problem, there will be some student in Thailand or I don't know that say, oh, I want to solve this problem and put it open source. So this super secret formula you had. So just be the first to release it. This give you visibility. This give you prestige. It's not a big advantage to have a tiny piece of software done.
Yeah, that is maybe not even part of your core business. It's like maybe not making a differentiation into your products at the end of the day.
That's the point, right? Many of these companies are more into selling hardware. Even if nowadays, when I think about robotics, I would say that the hardware is just something that you use to deploy your software. I see software being, and this is also connected to this sentence we have in the internet, like software, uh, uh, hit everything. There was a sentence that was very famous about the fact that nowadays it's all about software. Um, so yeah, it is. I guess the companies are slowly learning the lessons. So there are some, probably, for example, Bosch is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They start contributing a little bit to ROS2. There are others that really use. I don't know, something that I can mention. Foxglove is a company that really focus a lot on the open source community. It sees there the potential, so they really want to be considered part of the open source community, and they have their own business strategy. Also, the company where I work, PickNik, the origin of PickNik was an open source software, and nowadays we work mostly in consulting. Over the last 10 years, we worked for 80 clients. And now finally we are releasing for the first time a commercial product that's fine, but we have been for 10 years and we still are contributors of the open source community.
And have you seen the community sort of have remained within the industry, and has open source had any role into forming careers for people, or have people moved them from like, yeah, I'm working in this open source company or company that works for open source, but now I'm moving to this private IP company that has nothing to do with what I was
Oh
doing?
yeah, that's happened a lot. There is a lot of back and forth. And of course there are when you think probably the more traditional one are the automation industry, so and car industry. Those are where there is the biggest gap in let's say culture. So I met people actually in the last 2 days that told me, oh yeah, now I work for this big automation company, and I miss my startup because the way you work is completely different. So there is some, yeah, and also in the history there has been some, honestly, some prejudice against ROS. That is kind of funny because it's not motivated on any technical reason. It's really pure prejudice.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that ROS, a key element of ROS is that it was easy to understand and to install and to get started. You didn't need, probably still don't need, even if maybe learning curve is becoming slightly worse, but you don't need to be an expert. So, as you can imagine, this was a big incentive for students to start using it, because they could build their project faster even if they were more junior. So it became incredibly popular in academia, and that creates a prejudice. Oh, so this is a toy software for academia because only students use it. That's a very valid software that is maybe more robust than the one you have in your company. You don't know it. But there is this idea that ROS is for academic that is completely false. Actually, very solid system has been built, with ROS. And I've been on the other side. It's not like your proprietary software is without bugs and without problems.
Yes. And
You don't want to say that, of course, but
no, and do you think like developers now make a conscious decision, or do they take it into account when they apply for a job and say, hey, maybe I want to continue working in someone that is actually using ROS versus someone that is not even.
I don't know. I don't know, honestly.
Have you made that decision before?
No. Of course, at the end of the day, I tried. Probably I end up in companies where they appreciate my background, but I would be equally happy to move to another company that doesn't use ROS. I would probably be an evangelist, say, hey, you're missing an opportunity.
Yes.
But not because I have any emotional attachment to ROS or because that's what I know. I can learn something else. It's just because I see a very practical and technical advantage.
Yeah, but you're also a maintainer of an open source project that is in the ecosystem. So even
Yeah.
if you move to a company that is not
I
using
will
it,
continue doing that.
you will still be contributing, right?
I will continue just for fun to contribute to that community. I don't know. That's also because that's something that I experienced in the last 2 days. I always say that the money that people use to pay your open source contribution is gratitude. And I got a lot of gratitude from users in the last 2 days. I'm so happy and proud that I give something back when I take so much. So.
And can we talk a little bit about PlotJuggler? And I know the main community is going to appreciate that. How did you initially had the idea? Like, were you trying to solve your own problem internally?
Yeah. So that's I have a very specific story about that. So there is probably people may know that there has been some famous robotic oriented DARPA challenges, right? So I can't remember which year it was, but the first challenge was about autonomous vehicles. That was really the kickstart that the pioneer project that started the autonomous driving. Then in 2014 there was the DARPA Robotic Challenge with the humanoid robots in a fake disaster response scenario. And I participated to that. And very recently there was the subterranean challenge where there were this fleet or multi-robot exploring caves.
That was last
caves.
one. The last
Yes,
year, right? Okay.
so a few months ago. So I participated to the second one in a team in Pensacola, Florida. We got second, 1 million prize, second place. That was a lot of fun. Great team, great people. And they didn't use ROS. They built from scratch the entire system in Java.
Wow.
And
all things Java.
All things Java, robotics. That's really not common. And they built over the years this fantastic tool that would collect a huge amount of logs, and then for 10 minutes they would generate 10 gigabyte of data.
Wow.
Really lot of time series. And the way they worked was run the experiment once. If the experiment fails, do not repeat the experiment. So I am sure you will empathize with this. So look at the logs, find what happened, and then you run again the experiment. So, but to be able to do that, you need to look a lot, and you need to have a very good tool that they had at that time. That really can make easy to explore a data set of maybe 10,000 time series with a very intuitive interface. That I was delighted. They said, "Oh, we need something like that in the broader community of ROS. This is fantastic. I love it." And if you think about drones, it's something like, "Oh, I can see the drone being a little bit unstable. Before you run it again because you're afraid of a crash, maybe you want to be absolutely sure about what is going on." So that's how important it is to figure out bugs, not repeating experiments, but analyzing logs.
Yeah, no, gravity forces you to actually inspect and really be sure that what you're doing is going to succeed.
Correct. So basically, I love this. This is so useful. This makes me so productive. And I said, I need to build the same.
So you were parsing gigabits of data and then filtering and plotting.
Yeah, exactly. So they could arrange all this plot in different widgets, actually everybody had, because of the software, everybody in the team had 3 monitors. Because actually you could really...
Like a financial system dashboard.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can display so much information that people were used to create 3 windows with a lot of graph and plots in 3 monitors. And everything made sense immediately. It was super useful. Sounds complicated, but it wasn't. And that's what I loved. And said, I want to build exactly the same experience or better. and I think I did. I think I did because you you can still use one monitor, but actually there is a startup that jokes about the fact that now, because of my software, now everybody has a ultra wide
A ultra wide.
screen to display more. And but that is so useful because collecting the data is the first step, but then you need an intuitive tool to really quickly, intuitively find the information you're looking for. So I always say that my goal is that I want to minimize the time from the moment where you have a question, say, oh, what happened, to the moment you have the answer. That is my goal. So I want if my software is successful, if it can make this time as short as possible.
And you made that. I have used it, and I think you reached your goal. And once you hit that goal, what motivates you to continue going? Like, do you have a plan?
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
Right now, money.
Okay.
All the new features that has been developed in the last 1 year and a half has been sponsored. One of this sponsorship was actually DJI.
Great.
So DJI sponsored the Fast Fourier Transform plugin for PlotJuggler. So they say, oh, we use PlotJuggler, we love it, but it would be nice to have Fast Fourier Transform. Would you like to do it for me? And that was a little contract I had with them.
So they reached out of the blue, or have you had any contact?
No. They reached me out of the blue, and there's another drone company that sponsored the other features very recently. It's called Skygauge. Actually, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it is in the list of
Your sponsors and
of my sponsors. And also they reached me and said, hey, we'd like to have this feature. Can you do it?
It's interesting because a lot of open source projects don't really nail that monetization scheme, and hence the maintainers have this burden on their own and end up being burned out after a while because you keep maintaining a software that everyone's using, but there's no reward for you other than appreciation, like you were saying.
So let's be clear, I cannot make a living out of it. That would be below threshold of poverty.
Yeah.
That's not something I can do. It's an incentive to improve it. Something that worked for me was to be very honest on my page. Say, hey, get in touch if you need anything. I've been in companies where even the engineers are afraid to contact developers, open source developers, because they don't want to bother them. And also managers say, oh no, this is something secret. We cannot talk with this open source guy. We cannot expose the fact that we use his software. But sometimes it's better to have a business relationship. No, talk with me. Let's sign an NDA.
And it makes it more clear and more direct and easy to understand.
I mean, also from the management point of view, I think it could be beneficial because now they are signing a contract with an entity, so they can say, yeah, we are buying a service from you, consulting or software development service. You sign that the IP of what you do is ours. Or usually what I do is say, this is the price if you want proprietary IP, and I do it for you, or I can give you a 50%. If you don't care, you pay half of it, 50% only, and I reuse it in the open source. And very often they say, no, we don't care, just you can reuse it, just give us the discount.
Of course, but I know that a lot of companies that don't like, even then don't do that.
But that's even better for the open source maintainer, more money for them.
Of course,
give us a different price.
I mean, I think that would be a great advice. So this is a great advice, and I've seen other people try to do it. And recently, actually, was talking to a maintainer. I'm not gonna say his name, but he was trying to implement this, and he was having a conflict because he didn't want to charge more just because he was not going to be contributing upstream, but he sort of had to do it because otherwise he would never actually be able to work on things he could contribute. So he wanted to give an extra incentive to those that actually wanted to help do that. Open source has been finally reaching to the point where it matures and it's widely adopted, and it's still being perceived as like this lesser thing by some,
Mm-hmm.
but companies are finally reaching the point where they see the benefit that they can hire people faster, and they can prototype faster, they can get to market faster, and I hope that at some point it makes it all the way to investors so that they know, like when they
Well,
see.
this is happening already, but only in the field of databases or something that has a very big growth potential. That's really not enough if you are for the smaller fishes,
Mhm.
right? So, even for me, everybody said, "Oh, your software is so great in these days," and one guy I know said, "Oh, you should live of this." I said, "How many people are in your company?" And say, "Oh yeah, we are 800. Would you pay? Would your company support and pay?" "Oh no, we can't." "Oh, so you are not a small startup. You just say that I deserve to pay for this, but from somebody else, right?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
from
Someone else give
you."
me the money.
So
No,
you see how complicated this is. So yeah, when you start asking for money, it's always complicated. Maybe this is a problem that hasn't found a solution yet. I following this topic, and as I said, I cannot make a living. Doesn't matter if how popular the software is.
Yeah, I mean, we also got to remember that we can't just be doing open source for the fact of, for the sake of doing open source. Like it
Yeah,
serves
exactly.
a purpose, right? Like we're
Right.
actually building bots here, so we're not gonna be building bots for free.
Mhm.
And not that we can help each other, but there's a business case to be made, and we have to
Absolutely.
actually solve a problem, and that's
Sure.
what this is all about. And it's a collection of patterns that people have, like a shared knowledge.
Mhm.
But the most important thing is, like you were saying, the community, the people behind it, and events like ROSCON. I think it's a great opportunity that we get to interact with each other and see what they're working on, and
Yeah.
maybe find those avenues to synergize better.
Mhm.
And like for the drone code and PX4 community, it's great to come and see all the similarities
Mhm.
between our industries. And I want to bring back home a little bit of what we saw today,
Yeah.
this week with robotics. Did you see any talk specifically that you enjoyed?
Oh well, I'm very interested to the momentum that navigation to, so the one for autonomous navigation of ground robots. I really like that work and I enjoyed that presentation. So probably that one. Also, the very first one that when we started it was about using ROS with in the context of surgical robot for liver.
Resection.
Correct.
Using
Correct. So
laparoscopy.
so once again, that was a great example of the fact that you have a software that provides certain characteristics, and you know that's not a robot, but it's a software that has made prototyping solution faster. Doesn't need to be a robot. And in the context of drones, I'm kind of surprised. I have my hypothesis. I don't know drones enough to be certain about it, but I have my hypothesis about it. Why maybe ROS is less common there. First of all, historically, framework framework like ROS existed 10 years earlier. It was really fragmented, mostly coming from academia. Everybody was reinventing the same wheel because we find out that a very convenient way to develop a robotic system was with independent modules in different processes connected through inter-process communication. So you can have a driver, and then the planner, the UI, and you have these elements loosely coupled and connected by message passing. So the hypothesis is that a drone company, since they have provide SDK that already solve maybe the access to the entire hardware. So it's not like other kind of robotics where you put together different kinds of hardware and they need to so the fact that in drones you have an SDK give a more unified experience on the low level side, and then probably there's a little bit more concern about the overhead of inter-process communication. So maybe this is I don't know, an incentive to create more monolithic and optimized software. Also, a lot of intelligence usually is remote, so the drone is more has less autonomy in many cases. So that it could also be a motivation for needing less distributed because usually we always talk about in robotic about distributed systems.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be a reason. On the other hand, say that I see a really big potential in the drone industry, understanding what the ROS framework can do for them, because can help having a more divide and conquer architecture, more modular architecture. So thinking about this is the control, this is the path planning, this is the computer vision model, and ROS help you doing this faster.
I think that you're right. There's not a lot of folks out there using ROS and PX4 together, or ROS and any other system, and I think it's due to the fact that drones are being limited into what applications they can be used in right now, because the access to the airspace is not so simple to grant given any number of factors, but it really comes down to you cannot fly beyond line of sight, rendering most of like 90% of the actual usage of a drone impossible, because you want to be able to use this technology as self-service as possible, where you put the drone in the box maybe and it flies at every time you want it and there's no human involved. The moment that you put a human in the loop, it makes it you are limited to that human's potential to actually carry out the mission, where you don't really need to have it in there. So when we remove that out of the equation, there's going to be way more opportunity to start doing more advanced things in autonomy, so that we can actually push things forward, specifically using all of the ROS integrations. In PX4, we're really trying to standardize more towards the usage of ROS and pushing way more for the usage of getting the higher level stuff, pushing into the companion computer. That's like the concept what we are using. We have the flight controller, which is like the safety critical component, and then you have the mission computer, which is typically a Linux based. And in that scenario, that's where we want things to happen. And there is a lot of research, and then I talked to a lot of people at Roscon this week that are surprisingly using both right now, but there's not a lot of products out there that are actually deploying it, because there is actually no use case yet because of regulation.
But once again, I mean, using ROS, it's just about building software system, not even robotic system, pure software system that are distributed or with a more loosely coupled modules. So once again, this is marketing. I mean, if you could use ROS in an industrial machine or in a vending machine. It doesn't need to be robotics or autonomous. It's just about the way you develop software. The fact is that in robotics we like this way to develop software, because it's a way that helps us manage complexity. So this loosely coupled, this is called, if we want to use, fancy terms from the computer science, this is component-based software engineering.
I think with any community, when it reaches a point of maturity, you start standardizing so that you put people together and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think that's what's happening with ROS, and now with PS4 and ROS, that's where we're trying to push things. Like, let's standardize on using the same interface and the same frameworks. And we were talking this week about the fact that there's a lot of VIO frameworks, there's a lot of tiny groups that actually create them, and then once the lead maintainer leaves the research group, the project actually goes away, or it just stagnates in there and nobody's using it anymore. So we hope that we can work together with the community to actually create something that like a basic set of guidance tools. Let's say, hey, we're all using this, we're trying to standardize into this road and direction, and hopefully we can reach the point where the fragmentation is not happening anymore. And I know you had a few comments about this earlier.
The fragmentation, yeah, but it's something I mentioned earlier that before ROS, since I've been 20 years in robotics, I always joke that I was doing robots already in the dark age before ROS. That's a joke I do because I must confess we have a lot of evangelists in our community, so I like to joke about the fact that. Oh, there was no life before ROS, no robotics. No. We did very complex robots even before my time. Uh, but life became much better later. And there was such a need for a framework that actually so many university and academic groups were reinventing their own. I even saw a European sponsored project. There was a meta framework. It was about analyzing and comparing the 10 existing framework. Imagine how fragmented that was. Because everybody was focusing on certain use case, but everybody was reinventing inter-process communication. Everybody was reinventing the same concept with the tiny twists. And at the end, there was... and being academic, a lot of this is abandoned, as you said, once the PhD start doing something else or leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been very lucky that somebody with a lot of money founded the Willow Garage, that is the company that built ROS, because we needed, honestly, just more time and more money to build something really solid.
Yeah.
And we've been lucky that somebody did it, and then the company disappeared. But we inherited this. Now there is, Open Robotics is the new maintainer and even the company where I work, they're former, they used to work in the same company. So the point is that now we don't have that fragmentation anymore, and it's so much better, because ROS, as I said, it give us, a reference software, a community, an ecosystem is really a central pole that connect project, software, and people.
Well, David, I want to thank you for your time. We were running out of time here, but I want to give you the opportunity to answer the one last question.
Sure.
What is the one thing that the community doesn't know about you that you think they should know?
I don't know. That I didn't expect this question. I don't know.
You can focus on maybe your projects, your personal life.
Well, I would say, okay, let's put it this way. What I want people to know is that if they have any need or any requirement with the software I develop, that is either PlotJuggler or Behavior Trees is another popular project, don't be afraid to get in touch. We can find a way to work together, because very often they don't even know that they can contact me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
there's a real person behind the project.
Yeah, exactly. Don't, it's not just scratch my own itch. I'm rebuilding this for the community. So, probably, I don't know.
No, that is great. A great advice. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a safe travel back home.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Bye-bye.